Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking at blood versus marriage, a family tree case study. We're going to be navigating the sometimes super confusing boundaries of complex family trees. You know, when families intermingle over generations, it's really easy to lose track of where social connections end and biological connections actually begin. So let's jump right into a highly specific case study to break down the science, the labels, and the reality of what actually makes two people related. So here is the exact question we're looking at today. Can you have children with a family friend if your uncle married her aunt? Now, to give you the full context from our source, this is an incredibly personal case study, and the friend in question happens to be a disabled person. And, when families are already this close and intertwined, it is totally normal to want to be absolutely certain about genetic health. People want the hard facts, no guesswork. So let's figure this out definitively by looking at exactly how these two individuals are connected. Okay, let's map out the actual architecture of this relationship. It really just comes down to 3 steps. Step 1, your uncle. He is obviously a part of your biological family tree. Then we cross a bridge, which brings us to step 2, marriage. Remember, this is a legal contract, a social union. And finally, that bridge connects to step 3, her aunt, who belongs to an entirely separate biological family tree. When you isolate the steps like this, the structure is literally right there in front of us. There is no line of genetics crossing from step 1 over to step 3. It's just a social and legal bridge connecting them. Now, we need to compare social and legal connections, like marriage, versus biological relatedness, meaning bloodlines. Look, society uses words like aunt, uncle, and cousin for both legal relatives and blood relatives all the time, which is exactly why this whole thing gets so confusing in the first place. But here's the thing. Nature does not care about our marriage certificates. It only cares about genetics. To really solve this puzzle, we have to draw a strict, impenetrable boundary between the social stuff. The paperwork, the shared Thanksgiving dinners, the emotional bonds, and actual biological relatedness, which is the DNA passed down from generation to generation.
Let's look at the actual definition here. Biological relatedness is a connection between individuals based entirely on shared bloodlines, rather than legal or social ties. Let's be incredibly precise about this. It relies strictly on genetics. It has literally nothing to do with legal ties, paperwork, or social proximity. If you do not share a common ancestor who passed down their DNA to both of you, you are not biologically related, period. Actually, it's pretty beautifully scientific when you think about it. And this definition is the ultimate filter we have to use when determining if two people can safely have children together without the risks associated with inbreeding.
So, applying that strict biological rule to our case study, the fog clears instantly. It becomes entirely obvious that your uncle marrying her aunt makes you related by marriage, not by blood. Think of your family and her family as 2 parallel train tracks. Your uncle and her aunt, they basically built a station that connects the 2 tracks. But the tracks themselves, they never actually merge. You are cruising on your track with your family's DNA, and she is on her track with her family's DNA. You are entirely separate biological entities who just happen to be socially connected through your relatives. Let's quickly review the hard biological facts of this scenario just to conclusively determine if there are any hidden hazards. First bullet point, neither of you is a blood relative of the other. There is 0 shared DNA from this connection. Second, your families are joined solely by marriage, just that social bridge. And third, which leads us to our inevitable conclusion. Because there's no genetic link, there is absolutely no biological reason that prevents having children together simply because of this family marriage. Which brings us to this quote directly from the research. Being connected through marriage does not make you biologically related. Honestly, that is the absolute biological bottom line of our whole explainer today. Let that sink in for a second, because it really cuts through all the societal noise and anxiety. We spend so much time referring to our in-laws as family. And hey, emotionally, socially, they absolutely are. But from a biological, genetic standpoint, signing a marriage certificate does not rewrite your cellular makeup. It just doesn't alter your bloodline. Because there is 0 blood relation between you and your family friend, the final verdict is that your family's intermarrying creates no increased genetic risk for the 2 of you. Sometimes, when families have a history of intermarrying, say 2 brothers from one family marry 2 sisters from another, it can totally feel like the gene pool is shrinking. But as long as the 2 individuals in question do not share a direct bloodline, your genetics are as distinct as any 2 random strangers off the street. And going back to the disability mentioned in the initial question, that doesn't change this fundamental truth about your lack of shared genetics. There is 0 biological hazard created by your uncle's marriage to her aunt. We can definitively answer the initial question of this explainer with a resounding yes. You can absolutely have children together.
But as we wrap up, it begs a much broader question. How often does society confuse legal family labels with actual biological reality? All the time, right? We let titles like aunt by marriage or cousin through marriage totally blur our understanding of basic human genetics, causing so much unnecessary stress and confusion about who we are and how we connect to those around us. It really makes you wonder, where else do we let legal paperwork override fundamental scientific truth? Kind of a wild thought. Keep that in mind the next time you're looking at your own family tree.